Hello, everyone. This is Michael, host of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. This is Friday, August the 9th, and you're getting ready to listen to episode 261 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, which was originally recorded on Monday, August the 5th. My apologies for taking a few days for finally to get it uploaded and for folks to listen. Bit of breaking news before you get ready to listen to episode 261 for those who have been sleeping under the rock as boxing fans. The rematch, between Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz is set. It was announced earlier today via social media. The rematch is going to take place on December 7th in Saudi Arabia to be streamed on DAZN. So yeah, the rematch between Ruiz and AJ is going to happen December 7th in Saudi Arabia. We will talk more about that next week on episode 262 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. But until then, get ready to listen to our recording of episode 261 of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, where you will hear all things boxing.
You are now listening to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, where you hear all things boxing.
Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Jacob from Jap Boxing, Daniel from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gents?
Hey, good to be here. Hot August night.
Yep, Monday nights.
Indeed. For those who are listening to us via YouTube, sorry for the delay. Because of the issues with YouTube and Google Plus in terms of live on-air hangouts, we did this recording live via Skype on Monday, August the 5th. But as I promised, no matter what in terms of Google Plus, YouTube, in terms of the hangout situations, we're going to get you a show on YouTube regardless. So here we are. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, live show, well, delayed show now, but still, YouTube show, podcast, blog, discussing all things boxing. The motto is, when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. And given our show last week, when tragedy occurs, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to find out any and all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, the blog page is the best place to go to, P4P Boxing Report. .wordpress.com. That's the link. You check the top right of the blog page. You will find links to want to find us on social media, YouTube, Twitter, Tumblr, everything in between, as well as links to where to find the podcasts on all platforms that have RSS feed like iTunes, Skype, SoundCloud, Spotify, you know the deal. Also links to my online fitness Beachbody page. I am a coach with Beachbody.com. Beachbody Challenge starts today. Gail, Daniel, I will be sending emails to you in terms of invites and all that. So Beachbody Challenge that I'm doing, Let's Build Together Challenge for August. That starts today. Yeah, let's get things started by recapping what went down this past weekend. Light weekend of boxing, but surprise. I named this particular episode, The Old Dog Still Has Something Left. And what I mean by that is, last week we did a preview of Marcus Browne, interim belt holder at 175 pounds, WBC, I believe it is, fighting John Pascal, former champion, multiple time world champ, multiple time champ. Last week I had concerns for Pascal. I thought Marcus Browne was too young and talented. I thought Pascal was aged, shot worn, but a lot of times in boxing you get the unexpected. Just when you think that someone is about to call it a day or seen his best days, he pulls it out from nowhere seemingly, and that's what Jean Pascal did. Once again, after to eat crow on here, but I do so gladly. As Pascal defeated Browne, 8th-round technical decision. Technical decision because in the 8th round, Browne suffered a cut, major gash as a result of a headbutt. But in between that, listen, Browne, he got off to a decent start early, but the Browne that I saw fight Badou Jack, I didn't see that against Pascal. Pascal, he came forward, he charged forward. He set the momentum in this fight as far as I'm concerned. And it was the right hand, the counter right hand, that proved to trouble Browne all night long. Hurt him with the counter right hand a minute into round 4. Put him down twice more in the 7th round. And even though the fight was stopped in the 8th, you could tell that, and the fight was close, 75-74 on the scorecards at the time, Pascal had the momentum. He had the advantage in power. And you got a suspicion that any time he was going to land that right hand hard on Browne, he was going to hurt him and hurt him badly. I will go to you, Gail. Are you as surprised as I was at the outcome, the way the fight went? Your recap.
I would say I'm slightly surprised. And fair enough. I think it was a fight where, just looking at the ages, the recent performance history, you would have been a little bit crazy to think that Pascal was going to win. Pascal, though, always puts up a good fight. He's really become the classic gatekeeper in all the right senses of the word. And you need these guys in boxing. You need them. But what do you know? He came through because he still does have power. He still does have accuracy. And when you have faults in your defense, like Marcus Browne does, and you leave yourself repeatedly open for virtually the same right hook over and over and over, you reap what you sow. And he didn't hurt Browne too badly with the first of the 3 knockdowns, but the second one put him down hard, and the third one really put him down. So the headbutt almost was beside the point. And since Pascal was winning that round, that was the point difference eventually in the fight. Although some people thought it might be a draw, and that wouldn't have been mathematically possible given that he had a 10-7 round at one point. What was interesting is that Browne landed twice the number of punches, almost to the number, as Pascal did, but Pascal was making his punches count. That's a lesson for everyone in boxing who watches a fight. Those 2 words have to go together, and they are effective aggression. Effective aggression. And, couldn't help but be happy for Pascal. He's been through it. He's always given a good effort. He's a good guy out of the ring. He's pleasant to deal with. He likes to have his fun and his antics and theatrics at weigh-ins. But other than that, he's always carried himself very well. And you had to love his post-fight comments that, he was taking his belt back to Canada where they've got the NBA champion, the world's best rapper, and him. You gotta love that part.
Indeed, given that, how much was it? $50,000 bet or something like that? I forgot how much money the bet was, 50 cents, but that's neither here or there. Still.
Right, forgot about that part. Now, that's also a nice little icing on the cake for him.
Indeed, and then I'll go to you, Jacob, and then you can follow up, Daniel, your reaction to what you saw. Is this a case of Marcus, as much as we want to applaud Pascal and what he did, is this also a case of Marcus Browne maybe not being good as some thought he was? In other words, the the fight that we saw against Badu Jack, was that a bit of an aberration?
I think for me, at least a little bit, I never really put a ton of stock into Browne. I didn't think that he was. I think this was his first loss, and pretty devastating one at that. But I didn't think that he didn't seem to me had to have a lot of the skills that I expect the greater fighters to have. He got that win against Badu Jack, but in this fight, I have to disagree with Go. I thought he did get hurt by that first knockdown. He got caught pretty flush, and when he got up pretty fast, he kind of fell backwards, and he was smiling, and we all know when people smile in boxing, that means that they have a little buzz to them. And then that second knockdown was
anytime your feet wobble, anytime your feet wobble and stumble once you get up off the canvas, that's a sign right there for me.
Yeah. And then that second knockdown, I mean, he caught him clean. I think it was a left hook or whatever, and he fell back pretty hard. So what they say in boxing, power is the last thing to go. So I mean, Pascal has a decent punch, and his heyday is behind him. But again, he's not going to lay down for anybody, I don't think. To Gel's point, like when he's gonna fight, he's gonna come to fight, and he's gonna try to win. Most of the time he's not going to win as of late, because he's just not the same fight. He's not the youthful fighter that he was. He had his time, but I don't think he'll hold on to any glory, for a long time. And Browne, this is kind of in connection what we were talking about with Teofimo Lopez last week, is that this is you want your fighters to have some adversity, even a loss, and then to see if they can get back on the horse and fix the mistakes that they had in their loss, or their through their adversity. So hopefully he can put things together and right the ship. But again, I still see a lot of flaws in his style and his skills. So I don't really think that he's going to be one of the top guys unless he fixes a lot of his game. But it was an exciting fight for as long as it lasted, and good for Pascal.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
Well, we got to look into, in many ways, what this represents, because there's always one fight when that the old guy's done, the old horse is done, but he has just one more good fight left in him. Remember, Raul Marquez had it. Eric Morales had it against Marcos Maidana. And this may be the one for Pascal, because Browne was doing good early on, but as Jacob mentioned, power is the last thing to leave you when you're aging. So once he got that first knockdown, you kind of knew that Browne was in trouble. And the second and third one also proved the point. The main thing that's probably going to be looking at in this fight is, we always look at the losers, and that's why we're going to question a lot of what Browne does, because obviously the Badu Jack fight left a pretty bad taste in people's mouths, considering the gash that happened to Jack. And not to mention all of the other stuff that happened to him outside of the ring. But I would have to give it to John Pascal. Like, he came in prepared. He knew what he had to do, and he executed a pretty decent game plan. That doesn't mean that I should put him in the ring with Alexander Vostok anytime soon. But he at least had a good showing after at least 2 or 3 fights where you looked at him and you were just like, no, just hang it up. It was a good showing by Pascal, but like I said, just one of those public aberrations where he just came out good, and we shouldn't take it to the account that it could be sustained.
Let's talk future here between these two. Pascal, he's a interim champion now. Where at age, what is he, 36, 37? Where do you think he will go from here? Light heavyweight landscape is pretty loaded. Look, he fought Kovalev twice already. He lost those two bouts, got stopped. I don't see him beating the likes of a Bivol. Berdybiev, that's tricky because of his power. Gvozdyk, I can't say that I would favor him either in a fight against Gvozdyk. What do you guys think he should do? Do you think he should just walk away on top? Do you think he will fight a rematch? Future for both of these guys. This is for anyone. This is for everybody here on the panel. For anyone who wants to chime in.
Sorry about that.
Well,
I think we were all
right.
having trouble finding our controls. A reminder that Pascal has already fought Dmitry Bivol. How fleeting our memories are.
I'm sorry. You're right. He did fight. He did fight Bivol
Yeah.
because he was acting up during the press conference
Yeah.
before the fight. Yeah, you're right.
Yep. He kissed him. He did some crazy stuff. Bivol's a good-natured young guy. He just, he gets it. He said, "Hey, thanks for helping sell the fight." He laughed it off. That was last November. To Pascal's credit, though, he stayed on his feet for the entire fight. So and made it to the final bell. So that should tell you a little something. Personally, I'd love to see him go out on this win. Go out on a high note. He can thrive off that, the memory of closing out his career this way on a big platform. But we all know they never do it. They never do it. The siren call of the ring of, oh, maybe I can do this again one or two more times. So he'll likely come back. I personally would love to see him fight Badu Jack. I think Jack would kick his ass. But I think the more likely is a rematch. Obviously it's makeable. There are people who didn't like the way it ended, although the right decisions were made. We don't have to like what occurred. I think it makes the most sense. I think, though, that Pascal has a damn good chance if he's back in the ring again with Browne, that if Browne hasn't corrected all of his mistakes, a version of exactly the same thing is going to happen. Now, maybe that gives Pascal the chance to prove a point. He gets it out of his system, and then he retires. Let us cross our fingers for that.
Daniel, Jacob, your thoughts.
I wish I could have the level of faith that Dale has, but I don't, because when it comes to Marcus Browne, I'll start first. Like, he has revealed, obviously, like this mentioned, there's no issues with him inside and outside of the ring.
I'm having trouble clearly understanding you, Daniel. Your mic is a little bit muddy.
How about now? Can you guys hear me?
Now I can.
That's better.
Okay. I said, I wish I could have as much faith as Gail has in this situation right now, but when it comes to Marcus Browne, like I said, there's enough issues inside and outside of the ring where it's going to be a tough road for him to get back. So he's going to be in the back burner for a little bit. Pascal, that's going to be a different situation because, in all honesty, unfortunately, they are in Canada. And what is one of the main rivalries that were wild in Canadian boxing that we never saw fulfilled? Pascal versus Adonis Stevenson. Now, we all know Adonis Stevenson, he's not going to come back into the ring, not after what he suffered. But maybe I can, as much as I would say, like, as far as any of the champions, I would not put John Pascal against any of the champions. But just as a proxy and just as an ego stroke, And because this is WBC, I could see him easily try to challenge Vostek. Just to try to say, I beat the guy that Adonis Stevenson couldn't. And it'll end badly because we made it a point, like Jacob always makes it a great point, like these guys don't know when to leave. They don't know when to really, really end it on a real high note. Which is sad in a way. You've rarely seen a case where a boxer will ultimately leave on top. And Pascal's unfortunately probably going to lead into that area where he'll try to make a title fight. But in the immediate future, this could lead into a rematch for him. There's enough there to make one. And like I mentioned, he could go WBC about Pascal, but it looks like Vostek and Beterbiev are going to be the ones fighting each other. So he's going to have something to do in the meantime.
I'll go to you, Jacob. Should Pascal call it a day, or do you think he should risk stepping there one more time for big money?
I mean, I personally wish Pascal would have retired a while ago. But in a way, this result is the worst thing that could happen for Pascal, because, and like it's been said already, you know, when these guys get to the end of their career, but then they get a win like this and get like an interim belt, and then that confidence starts seeping in and be like, you know what? Hey, I knocked this guy down 3 times, undefeated, young guy, and you know, maybe I can do that to some of these other guys. You know, maybe I still have it. So, you know, I don't think that he does. I don't think that he has it. I think that he was, he caught Browne, good. He has the skills to do what he did, but I think against the other champions, I don't think that he's going to be that fortunate. And unfortunately, I don't want to see him go down that road where he's, he just gets more deteriorated from damage, because he's a proud guy, and he's gonna, like we said before, he's gonna fight and he's gonna leave it in the ring. And unfortunately, what that means is that again he's gonna take damage, potentially, and hopefully not tragic damage like the fighters that we talked about last week. And even just to speak on Stevenson, I've been seeing some positive videos on him, with his fight, and he was basically clinging to life, and he seems to be in really good spirits. He's talking, and I think he sent a message to Badu Jack, and it was kind of like a thank you message and all this stuff. I mean, it was really, really kind of pretty touching. But the other thing that Pascal has, unfortunately, is he's a name, and in boxing, especially if you're a promoter or a network or even a venue, names sell fights. Whether they're past their prime or not, they sell fights. So if you have a young up-and-comer guy that wants to vie for the belt, or you want to make a fight for the belt, names are going to sell fights. So if people can recognize the name and be like, oh, I remember that guy, or, he's popular in a certain area, then, they could potentially sell more tickets off that name. And, then that comes along with like money and whatnot. And these guys, depending on how they've managed their financial lives, sometimes that's why they keep on hanging on, is most of the time it's for money. They haven't managed their financial lives well enough to be able to do something after the sport. So in order to supplement their lifestyle, they have to keep on fighting. And so they kind of hang on a little bit too long. But again, hopefully with these recent tragedies, some of these guys start to wake up a little bit, and, again, hopefully they take care of themselves a little bit more. But I don't think this is the last we'll see of Pascal. I think, this win is, revitalized him.
Like I said, want to give credit to Pascal here in terms of what he did, the upset that he pulled off, where he goes from here. Who knows? I echo Gail's sentiments and Jacob's that I would like Pascal to call it a day, but being boxers and who they are and what they are and their mindset. On far too many occasions, they hang on for 1, 2, 3 fights too long. So as much as you want to see Pascal leave on top, we will probably see him again. Jacob, you mentioned the tragedies in the sport that has occurred over the last few weeks. The recording of this show is happening in the immediate aftermath of tragedy, multiple tragedy that's happened in this country. I should have said this at the beginning of the show, but I'll take the opportunity to say it now that for those stateside, at least here in the U.S., we are in the aftermath of just some horrific events that have taken place over the weekend, on Saturday specifically. Mass shootings in Dayton, Ohio, El Paso, Texas. I'm not going to mince word. It was an act of domestic terrorism. And people may get mad at me for saying this, specifically racist white domestic terrorism. Particularly the one in El Paso, most certainly. We here at Pound for Pound Boxing Report are grieving over what happened, and we send our thoughts and our prayers and our condolences to the lives lost in the El Paso act of domestic terrorism, the loss of lives and those injured at what happened in Dayton, Ohio. And there was an incident in Chicago as well. So, again, we share the sadness, the nation's of sadness, this nation in a bit of a mourning, if you will, over what happened. The society, man, the culture, man, we gotta get right. That's all I got to say. We gotta get right.
Michael, you speak for me, so if they're mad at you, they're mad at me too. And you're right, we have got to get our heads put on straight in this country, and we cannot wait for people in our state capitals or our nation's capital to do it. Change comes from us. We need to do it. It's time to get beyond the sorrow we feel and the thoughts, prayers, and empathy. It's time for us to get pissed, get mad, and get vocal. Now is the time.
Indeed. And sometimes in incidents like this, sports will provide a bit of a relief. And sometimes the irony is that the controlled violence in the ring will give a bit of, for lack of a better word, of upliftment, given the violence that will occur outside of the ring. Boxing is not just a violent sport, but it is a test of wills, and when done the right way, is a beautiful thing. And we got that last week in the main event. We talked about Browne and Pascal. The main event that took place on that same card was Otto Kownacki and one of Gail's absolute favorite fighters, Chris Arreola. In spite of the brutality in the ring, it was a beautiful display of what boxing is, not at its best skill-wise, but at its best in terms of what it can bring to fans. Is Kownacki or Arreola close to pound for pound? No. But you cannot help but you can't help but to applaud the effort that both men put on in the ring. Kownacki, he won by decision, but Arreola gave an excellent account of himself. Back and forth battle for all 12 rounds. And for us as boxing fans, given the tragedy that we're still dealing with nationwide in the aftermath of El Paso and Dayton, again, what we saw from Kownacki and Arreola, I congratulate both guys. I didn't even care who got the decision at the end. It provided temporary relief in terms of when boxing is done the right way, the past positive aspects of not just the sport, but of humanity, given how both guys, the way they displayed themselves from a human level, that's what it's about. That's what it's about. I'll go to you, Jacob, your reaction to Kownacki's win over Arreola.
Yeah, it was an exciting fight. I think it was said on, previously, but, styles make fights, and the style that both these guys bring made a very, exciting fight for the fans, on a night that had a couple of upsets, Pascal and was it Omatosa? I thought maybe Arreola was going to pull off that third upset.
I didn't mention that, but yeah, Omatosa, who stopped Curtis Stevens. And Stevens, he's one guy who needs to retire. Far too late for him to move back down to 154, and he looked horrible in the ring that night. So if you're going to perform that badly, someone needs to have a come to Jesus meeting with him and says it's time to hang up the gloves. But yeah, carry on, Jacob.
Yeah, and I agree with you what you said, but yeah, it was just a good fight, and I actually thought, Goosen was talking about it. I actually thought that Arreola had a chance to maybe stop Kownacki and steal this fight away from him, because I felt like Kownacki came out fast. He landed a lot of shots on Arreola, had him a little buzzed, I think. But he also got tired, and I think, I want to say third or fourth round, he was getting a little sloppy, and so I think that would have been the time for Arreola to capitalize on him. But overall, both guys put on a great show. The unanimous decision win was for Kownacki by pretty wide scorecards. And then I think the other kind of fact on this fight was that Arreola threw, I think, 1,125 punches, which was the most thrown by a heavyweight in CompuBox 34-year history. So, I thought that was interesting that this guy who is kind of towards, definitely towards the end of his career, if this is not his last fight. I mean, he even mentioned that if he couldn't beat Kownacki, that he was gonna retire, but that he threw that many punches is pretty crazy. But yeah, I think we'll talk about where both guys go from here. But yeah, very entertaining fight, a welcome distraction from the madness that is North America, unfortunately, with all these things that are happening. But to echo your sentiments, boxing. They don't call it the sweet science for nothing. There's definitely skill. There's definitely, everything that encompasses the sport is there. It does have aspects of violence, but people that hang on that and think that that's all boxing is just don't know anything about the sport, and I don't think personally watch it. So
I'll go to you, Daniel. Your reaction to what you saw. Unmute your mic, Daniel. Oh, there you go.
Not only was Arreola threw the most, Kownacki threw the most too. That was, the most punch output in every heavyweight fight in CompuBox history. And that tells you a lot about the caliber of this fight. Granted, we downplayed it a little bit because obviously Arreola's on his last legs. And he is still coming up, even though, as we mentioned, he was rumored at one point to be one of the potential opponents for Deontay Wilder. But this was a really good fight. Arreola actually surprised me with how good and accurate he was. And once again, like, he reminded me of his lone, like, his second, one of his two only main title fights against Klitschko, where he broke his hand. And he refused to give up despite having a broken hand. Arreola I think he broke his right hand in this fight because he landed so many times so flush. But it's a good telling of a fight. It's a good showing in Milwaukee, knowing that he could take a lot of punishment from somebody that was at one point. Granted, we have to look at the landscape of the division at the time, but somebody that was considered at one point a top 10 heavyweight in the world. And now you can see the development on Kownacki. You can see that he can do a punch output. He can be one of those guys that can throw that many punches, similar to like an Andy Ruiz in a way when he gets his hands going. But it was a really, really entertaining fight. Like, granted, like I said, we kind of lower expectations to it, but it had a great fun. And Chris earlier they mentioned that he is gonna talk to his family possibly about retiring. And Arreola, for all the grief that we give him, for all that much we make fun of him, he's been one of the more entertaining characters in boxing in the time here. And that's been over the past 12, 13 years. I remember seeing him in 2007 out here when he was still with Goosen. And he was still just a regular guy just coming up. You could tell that he was a guy that wouldn't turn people away, if he spoke to him. And whether if he does retire, good on you. You showed your best. You did try. You unfortunately weren't able to achieve your goal, but guess what? You did see a Mexican become a world champion.
I'll go to you, Gail, again. Given the backdrop of what had happened, particularly in El Paso, this fight took place hours after that, while much of the news was focused on that. Given what we saw, this was a bit of light, ironically enough, boxing and the violence that's associated with boxing. This fight gave us a bit of light under all the darkness that took place this past Saturday. Your reaction?
And let us point out this was on network broadcast television in the United States on Fox Sports. So everyone got to hang out on a summer Saturday afternoon and see it, which was great fun. These were fan-friendly fights, all three of them. Was there a lot of art involved? No, not particularly. High skill level? No, not really. But it doesn't always take that. Honestly, it doesn't. These were fan-pleasing fights. They were all stoppages. There was all plenty of action. I will admit, in the main event fight that went the distance, I began to cringe about the 9th or 10th round, and I'm starting to think that it's A, a function of age, and B, a function of what we're seeing going on around us. When it's a really rock'em sock'em robots phone booth, admittedly a really big phone booth fight, I can only watch so much of it knowing the danger those guys put themselves in, sheerly for their pride and our entertainment. And God bless them. They gave it all. They did so willingly. They did so cheerfully. They embraced like brothers after the fight. Two guys from completely different backgrounds. That is heartening for all of us. Forget the sports portion. Michael, you were so right to point out that sometimes sports is what brings us from different backgrounds together, look at this show and look at the boxing community. Yeah, we got our squabbles and we got our people who favor certain types of fighters over another, and we get a lot of that sort of tribal, arguments going on. But at the end of the day, fandom definitely crosses lots and lots of the barriers that you see in society. I mean, the fact that I, looking and being who I am warmly embraced by every kind of person you could possibly imagine when I walk into an arena. That just speaks well for the boxing community in general. And this fight was kind of an ambassador of that. Having said all that stuff, Arreola needs to retire. He promised he was going to retire. You see him in the ring there after he's done, holding his absolutely adorable 4-year-old son. That's what he needs to think about. And unfortunately, Kownacki, Deontay Wilder, who was on the broadcast team, and several others kept saying, "Whoa, we sure hope Arreola doesn't retire. Damn, that was such a good fight. It was great. We loved it." They don't need to be saying that stuff to him. They do not. He needs to be done. There's no reason he can't work in and around boxing, especially if he's at Southern California. He would be welcome in any gym I can think of. He's a great guy. He's easy to deal with. And, if you see him at a fight in the near future, for Pete's sake, buy the man a beer. I intend to when I next see him, but I think he really needs to be done. Please, we do not need him to gatekeep for some young powerhouse and get knocked the F out. He's done. He really needs to be done.
Problem is, Gail, is that, as I said in the pre-fight show last week, off air, let Ruiz beat Joshua in the rematch. I can easily see Ruiz in the first fight after that saying, giving Arreola people a call. It's a natural fight. It's a natural fight that could be good money for both guys.
It's a crazy fun fight. Can you imagine, Jacob? You get the drool bucket out, man, at StubHub. You see that fight. Or a new venue that's being tried here in a week or two, the Bank of California Stadium in Los Angeles, next to the Memorial Coliseum, where the Los Angeles Football Club soccer team plays. Top Rank staging an event there. If that goes well, can you imagine? Done in that outdoor soccer stadium? Yeah, I must admit it would be fun. But no. I love me some Chris Arreola. I have been wildly entertained at a lot of his fights. He attends a lot of fights in Southern California. It's just as a fan, you see him all the time, and he's sitting there drinking with the fans in the cheap seats. He loves it. He was on his way out of the arena after the fight with his son in one arm and a broken hand that had to hurt like hell. And he stopped all the way down the runway and the tunnel, signing autographs for fans, taking selfies. For God's sake, somebody should have handed him a beer right then, out of their hand. Here, brother, here you go. But no, he stopped. It took him 10 minutes to get out of there, just to walk back to his dressing room, just for the people lining the corridor on his way out. That's the kind of guy he is, and that's why the fans love him. But I just hate to see him sacrifice anymore. He's only 38 years old. Kind of hard to believe. He's really an old 38 in the ring. He needs to be done. He's got a lot of years of living ahead of him, and he needs to be a healthy father to his young son.
I'll go to you there. I'll go to you, Jacob and Daniel. You can handle this. Gail just talked about what she would like for Arreola. She would prefer for him to retire. The question to you, Jacob and Daniel, what's on the horizon for Kownacki? We saw Wilder there. Kownacki is ranked 5th by the BC. Kownacki, he's not ready for the likes of Deontay Wilder. Plus, Deontay Wilder, he's tied up with fights against Ortiz, and then following that, should he win against Ortiz, rematch with Fury. Kownacki, he's not ranked 5th, he's ranked 6th, Who should he fight in between now and a possible upcoming fight against Wilder later on 2020, maybe even 2021. When you look at the heavyweight landscape, who would you like to see him in the ring against next?
That's kind of a tough one. I mean, like you said, Wilder's tied up with Ortiz, Fury. Fury's got a fight, which I know we'll talk about. Joshua's fighting Ruiz. Dillian White's kind of in a no man land zone. I'd like to see him fight. Maybe like a Joseph Parker. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight. But I think that might be harder because of the PBC top rank thing. He already beat Washington, which I was never a fan of. But maybe, I don't know, maybe Brazil. I know he just got his head spun around by Wilder, but, he's still I guess, considered one of the top guys. Chisora would be a decent fight, I think. If I hate to say this,
I was
Big
thinking
Baby
maybe,
Miller.
No. I was thinking he doesn't deserve that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was gonna say is that but I mean, with boxing though, this always happens is that they these guys fight through their suspensions or whatever, and then they get out of it, and then they get back in the ring. So because Ortiz has popped before, and he's back in it. Tyson Fury has had some questions about his. Is Pulev scheduled to fight anybody? And I don't know if what thing he's not, but
he's not, and he was reinstated 2 weeks ago by the California State Athletic Commission.
See, I'm thinking
but he's fighting, isn't he fighting Fury or something like that? Who's Fury? Who's not Tyson?
He had an opportunity to fight Fury, but
no, not Tyson. I'm talking about Huey Fury.
Okay, Huey Fury.
I think
they
made an announcement that he's fighting. Who the fuck is he? He's fighting somebody.
I would mind seeing Kownacki against the likes of a Rivas, who lost to Dillian White, Michael Hunter. That would be a good test for him. That's just a couple names that's just popped in my mind as we're having this discussion. But you can go on.
Rivas is part of what promote. See, the thing is, unfortunately, when we talk these fights, we have to think about the promotions because, who's under that PBC banner that he can fight.
Yeah, Rivas is with Top Rank. Huey Fury's fighting Povetkin.
Oh, Povetkin, that's right.
On
another cheater.
August 31st, yeah.
And like Joe Joyce and some of the up and comers they're with, I think, with Eddie Hearn and that DAZN thing, and so it's the waters are muddy, but I definitely want him to be active, so that's why I said Brazil, because I know he's a PBC guy and he's, even though he just got knocked out, or maybe I didn't even want to say this guy's name, but Charles Martin, he was once a champion, so it'd be, there's not a whole lot of options because a lot of the top guys are tied up. And I agree with you. I think if he fights Wilder, he's got to knock him. He's got to hurt Wilder in the first few rounds, because once Wilder lands his power shot on him, I think he's done.
Your thoughts on this, Daniel?
This makes it difficult. Like I said, like I mentioned when I talked about Arreola, to me, Arreola has nothing left to do. He can't go any further than he can now. I would beseech him to retire. Retire with at least some of your faculties over. But as far as Kownacki, that's the difficult part. Because you saw the flaws in that fight. There was a reason why Chris Arreola landed and threw over 1,000 punches. And that's not going to be good against top tier heavyweights. I agree with Jacob. If he gets Wilder, he has to hurt him probably within the first 3 rounds. if it gets anything past round 4, Wilder will establish his jab, he'll land the right hand, and then it'll be night-night.
Yeah, he'll leave him splat like pancake batter.
Yeah. Yep. And Ruiz, that might, like I said, that would have been an interesting fight, but we know he's busy with Joshua. Now we know obviously Joshua. So there's not really a lot of like guys stateside that he could do. So he may have to go to Europe. He may have to go after somebody like a Joe Joyce, or maybe if he's willing to, we don't know how much the Commonwealth title means to Daniel Dubois, but maybe challenge somebody like that, Daniel Dubois, somebody who's also young, who has a lot of upside. Or if you're going to test yourself against somebody also that's in that caliber area, why not? Let's say someone like Derek Chisora or Robert Helenius. There's a decent amount of fights into it now, and then we have the problem characters like Richard, Big Baby, but Big Baby doesn't deserve it after all the tests he's popped. We know Dillian White is like in the Marianas Trench right now. So it's difficult for him to gauge because even his trainer said they want him to get 2 fights before he gets a chance of Wilder. I would say he needs more than 2, but he does need the race competition. Arreola's good. Like I said, he was, we have to take into account the state of the division, but he was a top 10 heavyweight at a certain point. But he has to face somebody that you can really gauge against, and a lot of them are going to be on the other side of the pond for the time being.
Let's move on to fight also took place this weekend over in UK. Michael Conlan versus Alberto Ruiz. I was not able to. I think this took place, I believe, in Ireland. Northern Ireland. Correct me on the exact locale. I was unable to see the fight. I'm going to rely on whoever here in the panel has seen the fight. So Conlan won by stoppage over Ruiz. From what I've read, he pretty much dominated throughout, had his way. I'll lean towards you guys to give me the details. So Daniel, Gail, Jacob, whoever's seen the fight, the floor is yours to give more description, more details on the fight.
Location of the fight was in Belfast. So
yeah, Belfast. Okay, so that's Northern Ireland. That's Northern Ireland, yeah.
And if you didn't see any photos of the venue, it's a festival venue in Belfast. Think of it as Belfast Coachella. Absolutely spectacular scenery, kind of in a little bowl area, green as you imagine Ireland be, set in the middle of that festival area. And people had been there all day, partying all day, waiting for this fight. I'm sure that there was much alcohol consumed, all in good fun, hopefully. And their hometown hero came through. It was not a spectacular, exciting fight, certainly not like anything we saw from Brooklyn. But Conlan got in, put the work in, got the job done. He's much more of a cautious fighter than I think a lot of people realize. He is not a spectacle kind of performer. There's a lot of holdover from his amateur background that I see. Very calculating. He's smart in the ring. But that also means that he does not ever take unnecessary chances. To be a really exciting fighter, sometimes you got to throw caution to the wind. He doesn't do that. So for the first half of the fight, it kept feeling like just slightly more than feeling out rounds sometimes. Technically, perfectly good. All the fundamentals in place. Not chilling, not thrilling, until boom! In the knockdown round, he connected with some truly good body shots. And it was the classic, hit the guy, he stands there and thinks about it a minute until the electrical charge goes through his body, and he was done. So a good performance, but a very Conlan performance. And I've seen him now several times ringside. And he goes along and he kind of putters along, and he's not doing anything wrong, and he's not doing anything spectacular, and he wins.
I'll go to you, Daniel and Jacob. We've talked a lot in terms of Shakur Stevenson and how ready is he for a championship fight. We've talked about Teofimo Lopez and how ready is he for a championship fight. Stevenson at featherweight, junior lightweight. Lopez at 135 pounds at lightweight. I mean, Stevenson at featherweight and junior lightweight. Stevenson at 135 pounds lightweight. Hadn't talked enough about Conlan and his development. In the lead up, he said he would love to fight IBF champion Josh Warrington, kind of a popular guy because Stevenson said he would like to fight him too. Given if you saw this fight, given what you saw in his win over the weekend, and given what you've seen from him over his 12 fights now as a professional, timetable in terms of Conlan, how close is he for a step-up fight? How close is he in terms of an eventual title shot, world title shot, I should say?
As far as a step-up fight, I would probably say he would have to do it in the next two fights. Because there is, like Gail mentioned, there is a lot of hold-up. Out of the people you mentioned, Lopez, Stevenson, with him, he has had pretty much the slowest transition from an overall amateur style to a pro style. Stevenson was facing that, but then over the last 2 or 3 fights, he certainly made the jump. We know Lopez has certainly made the jump, and he already has a step up. He already had a step up fight that he needed. Conlan will probably need one right pretty soon. But as far as a world title, because of that, because he has been slow to fully adapt to a pro style, I would not put him in a world title fight until at least 2021. I know he makes money. I know he could sell out Belfast. I know a fight with Warrington would sell Belfast. Hell, him and on the card we call Frampton would sell out probably Dublin, even though they're both from Northern Ireland. But the development has to be there. And I would say that if for a world title shot, I would wait to at least 2021.
I'll go to you, Jacob. How soon is Conlan? How many fights do you think Conlan needs in terms of a step-up fight? How far is he away from an eventual world title opportunity?
I personally don't think he's ready for a title fight, and I think he's quite a bit a ways from. I mean, I think he definitely should get a step-up fight, but I think he's quite a bit a ways from a title fight. I don't think he's ready. Gail kind of hit on a lot of the points of the fight itself. He has very much that still that amateur style, kind of plays it safe. The guys he's fighting aren't anybody that anybody's really worried about. So I would definitely like to see him step up, but unfortunately, I don't think that he should step up to the title holders because I think that would probably derail his career. I just don't think that he's ready. He hasn't made that full transition from the amateurs to the pros yet, in the sense of being. I haven't seen enough of him to say that he has that, I guess, grit and style that will carry him on to be at least competitive in those fights. I think, he's definitely got to step up the competition, get a few more names on his resume, and depending on how he performs in those fights, that would tell me more about whether he's ready for a title fight.
I'm going to some news here. I'm gonna give the floor to you, Jacob, because you railed on this when I shared the news on Twitter and here in Skype on Skype. You've often talked about wanting Canelo Alvarez and been highly critical of him, more so out of the ring than in the ring. I've called him a diva, and you've called him that as well. Well, the saga of Canelo in terms of outside the ring stuff, it continues on. We know he was supposed to fight in September. That's been pushed back. A lot of people anticipated he was going to fight Triple G a third time. That's not going to happen. We still don't know who his opponent is going to be or when he's going to appear in the ring. Well, news broke over the weekend that the IBF has decided to strip Canelo of the belt. He's not happy about it. He's not happy about how things went on behind the scenes between IBF and Golden Boy. De La Hoya sent out a long published letter expressing his frustration, his outrage, I should say, over the IBF decision to strip him. Again, the floor is yours. Make what you can out of all of this. Canelo, Golden Boy, the IBF. This is drama on all sides.
Yeah, okay. So, where to begin? So, again, with the Canelo situation, I've for a long time have said, I know everybody was saying that, if he won his fight against Jacobs and if Golovkin won his fight, and the reason that DAZN signed Golovkin was for the third fight, right? The big mega fight. I personally don't think that Canelo, I don't think it's a fear thing that he's afraid of Golovkin. I just don't think, I think he has a lot of pride and he doesn't want to give Golovkin the satisfaction of potentially, winning a fight. And then if let's say Golovkin gets a decision or, he stops him or whatever, then we got to have a fourth fight because we have a draw and then we have one win on each side. And so his career and his history is tied up with this guy. And even though it was confirmed that DAZN has to approve his opponents, I don't think I don't think Canelo even cares about that. I think that he's still going to do what he wants to do. It's not like I mean, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. It's not like they gave him all the money for the deal of the fight up front. And we've seen deals, break down or deteriorate or, between promotions and all this stuff. If people don't keep their end of the bargain, then they don't get paid the money. So he's going to do what he wants to do. The fact that Oscar De La Hoya, though, and his team, the matchmakers and all the people, that they were so upset with the IBF is complete, utter trash. Because IBF was only following their rules, which they've bent before for Canelo. When I think their same day weigh-in rule, whatever for unification fights, they kind of like forgone that for Canelo in a way. But Canelo, the guy, he doesn't even fight at the same weight. Every fight, he jumped up to super middleweight to get a title from a weak title holder, and then he goes back to middleweight, and then he's talking about jumping up 2 divisions to light heavyweight. So does it really? I mean, does he really hold these belts sacred? Like these sanctioning bodies want these guys to defend against the whole idea of the rankings thing. Is who's the next contender? Who should be fighting? So you should be fighting someone in the top 10. You should defend your belt. But he's jumping all around these different weights, and so what do they expect? And they had, they could have filed for an extension on this, and these are rules that have been in place for a long time, and they didn't file it on time. They did it late because they think that because it's Canelo, and I think this is what Golden Boy thinks, that it's Canelo, that we're gonna he's special, so we're gonna bend the rules for him. And so many people have bent the rules for him. The WBC it's created this stupid fucking whatever the franchise title, which makes no sense at all. It just, again, it falls into the whole diva thing. Oscar's got his panties in a bunch over all this stuff, but he has no foot to stand on. I mean, if he puts a lawsuit, he's going to lose that lawsuit, and I think it's just all posturing because it seems that Canelo isn't very happy with the team because they're supposed to be managing his career, and I think they're not doing the job that he wants them to do. So there's a little bit of friction within amongst the ranks. I mean, he even tweeted out, himself, that he was unhappy with how things went down. So again, they're going to try to, of course, he's the cash cow for Golden Boy. They're going to try to make him happy, and they're going to try to figure this out. But it looks like Derevchenko and Golovkin are probably going to fight for that now vacant IBF belt. Potentially, I heard Canelo is going to fight Andrade for his, I think he has a WBO belt. And, so that he can at least, he'll have he still has a WBA. He can still unify the WBO. But, Canelo also has to figure out where does he want to be? He can't keep on jumping around on these weights and then expect everybody to hold their careers for him because he's the popular money fighter. Like that, I think that's selfish, and I think that's not good for the sport. All these people, put their life on the line, as we've said before. They work hard, they train to, work their way up the rankings, which is why they're there, to get a shot at becoming the champion. And just because somebody wants to be multiple division champion at the same time, like that's completely just dumb and selfish. Like, clean up your division or pick a division, stay in your lane. Golden Boy, get your shit together. And it's just plain and simple. I mean, it's business, it's boxing, but there's also more people involved than just, these narcissists that think that the world revolves around them and they get to just call the shots all the time.
I'll go to you, Daniel. It seems like everybody's unhappy. The situation's in a bit of flux, to be polite here. I asked Jacob, what does he make of all this? The same question applies to you.
There's mostly a lot of parts, but Golden Boy had to know this was coming. You do not challenge the IBF when it comes to these things because the IBF is the only sanctioning body that at least makes a half-assed attempt to follow their own rules. So they should have known better to challenge it. But to me, it's a bit of a situation where it wasn't so much. And like I said, this does fall on Oscar a bit. It isn't so much like, they thought that they're going to make special connection to Canelo. Who's Sergey Derevchenko affiliated with? Al Heyman.
Yeah.
And what is Oscar De La Hoya's relationship with Al Heyman?
Not the greatest.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. To me, it was just a situation where they're probably like, I'd rather drop dead than deal with an Al Heyman fighter. And it did cost Canelo the title. Now, that may be on Oscar's part, but that's not Canelo's prerogative. For us, prerogative is probably to defend the titles that we can. And granted, yeah, he has to talk about what he needs to do, but considering the tweet that he put out there and all the decisions, he had to have known at some point. Like, there's literally no way that you have your cash cow sign that type of big money deal and not have him be informed that, hey, one of these fights has to be this one. Now, we don't know really what's going to happen around this. Maybe Golovkin is being entirely too stubborn, which we kind of seen at this stage he's going to be willing to do. Or maybe, like I said, they did see a situation where if it was Derbychenko, it was going to be Jamal Charlo, another Al-Haymon fighter. But granted, the WBC, after experiencing the first time, dealing with trying to tell Canelo what to do, had to completely upend their own rules and their own regulations just to make sure that they could please him. And supposedly they're going to try to do that with Errol Spence if he wins the fight with Sean Porter. Supposedly that was the idea. That was the idea of doing it with Deontay Wilder. When it came to his situation, Dillian Whyte, although Dillian Whyte looks to have already taken care of that himself. So it's just a gigantic mess all around. And this is one of the dangers that happens when nobody really talks fully with each other. Except I thoroughly do not believe that Golden Boy would not at least inform Canelo, hey, this has to be one of the fights going into it. But at the same time, Canelo's your cash cow. You have to listen to what he says. Yeah, Jacob's right. Like it does get annoying. Like he goes from middleweight, then super middleweight, then talking about like heavyweight. But at the end of the day, he is your cash cow. And you kind of already screwed up once with this cash cow because remember, he gave up this year. He gave up Mexican Independence Day weekend because they didn't figure out an opponent. And Top Rank jumped right in with Tyson Fury and his bullshit. Like I know we're going to talk about that later. But it is a mess. But I'm pretty sure all parties are going to talk. Oscar's going to sit down with Canelo. He's going to tell him this is the way it has to work. And if anything, if you're going to make the third fight with Golovkin, try to make the fight with Andrade first, beat Andrade, get the WBO title, and then have the third fight with Golovkin be for all the marbles. It could make sense. It's a stupid way to do it, but it's the main way to salvage it.
I'll go to you, Gail. I'm sorry I had it on mute. I'm writing on some late breaking news that I actually share with you guys in the chat. Not going to disclose it here. Going to wait and try to talk about that next week. But in terms of the topic here right now, what do you make of what Daniel called this quote-unquote mess?
I'll tell you, boxing eats its own so many times. It really does. It's notorious. Watching this play out publicly is like watching a couple, having a public fight. It's just ugly and uncomfortable. Nobody likes it.
This is soap opera, man. This is soap opera mess. Soap opera nonsense.
Telenovelas. That's what it's all about. But let's look at what happened. Everybody is assuming documents were fully read. There was full disclosure and discussion. Reasonable adult people with their various advisors sat down because there's so much money involved. You know what? That is not always how it happens. And I'm going to pull a little example out of my personal history. I sat on a 6-week civil jury trial between a developer and an investor. The investor happened to be a Japanese businessman who'd made his millions in, of all things, heavy equipment, construction equipment. Be that as it may, he did not speak any English. The people he was doing business with did not speak any Japanese. They were relying on translators for documents, and the Japanese party to this business deal never read any translated documents for a multi-million million dollar deal he signed. He trusted advisors around him, and then got a full lay of the land, and things fell apart. And in the end, after 6 weeks, and each side had multiple lawyers, and there were banks, and at times there were like 12 attorneys in the room, the jury sent both sides away without a dime because they screwed up their business dealings so badly. Everyone behaved badly. I would not be surprised in the slightest, knowing human nature, that Canelo went in there either without an independent third-party attorney or business advisor, accountant, somebody reading all the documents who could read them in English, or they weren't translated and he was relying on somebody else, like his promoter, to tell him what was in them, or representatives at the zone. No, you need to have your own business counsel, trust but verified. I don't think Canelo's that sophisticated of a business enterprise mogul that he did that. And I'm not sure there's a whole lot of people on the side at Golden Boy who operate at that level either. They run a perfectly good promotional company. They have smart people who do well in their jobs. Another factor, too, is the fact that Oscar is not always present and accounted for. And I'll leave it at that. But that means guys like Robert Diaz and Eric Gomez and Bernard Hopkins have to shoulder more of the business responsibility. So it's a perfect storm. I think a lot of T's didn't get crossed and a lot of I's didn't get dotted. And all of a sudden they're all saying, well, didn't you know this was in the contract? Well, when were you going to tell me? You didn't tell me it was in the contract. I said it. No, you didn't. And we've got this going on. This is like people who sign major contracts and loan agreements and documents without reading them. And people do that. People put themselves on the line and they don't read the fine print. And here we are. And now they're like a couple fighting with each other. And what's going to happen in the end? You know, sometimes it's just too expensive to get divorced. It just is. And you're going to have to, the alternatives are worse. You just end up sticking with it, sucking it up, and moving forward. I think once everybody settles down and the bottom lines are examined in detail, nobody wants the nuclear option here. Nobody. The big stumbling block I think that will be problematic is Canelo's absolutely intense and very, very real dislike of Golovkin and his entire camp. Oscar gets along fine with Tom Loeffler with them. The organizations work together just fine. You get down to the fighters, Canelo hates with a capital H, Golovkin's ass. And Golovkin doesn't like him much either. Golovkin's a tiny bit more businesslike. Canelo strikes me as sometimes a little more emotional, which in some cases makes him a better fighter, actually, because he can tap into that. But that's going to be the problem because Canelo is not going to want to give Golovkin any.
See, even your dogs barking and growling in the background, they ticked off.
They're ticked off about the whole thing, And so Canelo, may concede to this thing, but he's going to try to freeze Golovkin out as long as he can. And once you've got enough money to live on, the rest of this stuff he's living on is a bonus. How much money can you have, right? So he'll play chicken with Golovkin and with everybody else and with the fans getting agitated as long as he can. It's not good long-term for him, his brand, his promoter. The other issue with Canelo is he is sophisticated enough, and he darn well knows that he is Oscar De La Hoya's cash cow. He is keeping that promotional company afloat. all the young guys in the stable aren't to the point of making big money for Oscar enough to pay everybody just yet. We're going to talk about one of those guys in the preview here in a few minutes, Vergil Ortiz. Vergil Ortiz is a tremendous talent. He's only going to be in the main event for the first time, and he can't carry a big holiday or pay-per-view or, big deal card. Not yet. There are a lot of guys hovering right around where he is, too. They're not there yet. And Canelo is essentially subsidizing their development. I don't think he likes that much either, now that he has started to figure it out. And that's been no secret for several years, long before he signed the DAZN contract. But, he's a fool if he didn't have a lawyer on his payroll or a business advisor going through all that stuff with a fine-tooth comb. And I'll bet you anything he didn't. And whose fault is that? It's Canelo's.
Speaking of fighters who have seemingly a bit of a beef with Golden Boy Promotions, over the past couple of days, and I'll go right back to you, Gail, if you want to comment, Daniel and Jacob as well, please do. Young upstart Ryan Garcia, I don't think he's the best prospect in the Golden Boy stable, but he's the most popular for sure. The ladies love him, the young girls love him. In a series of tweets, he's been popping off about his displeasure with Golden Boy. Supposedly, he had a fight set up. It was called off, having some issues with, I guess, how much he's being paid here. Listen, Garcia, he's good for the sport, no matter my criticism of him. He's only 21 years old. Is he a little bit too young and too unproven to be running his mouth off towards Golden Boy? Say what you want about the promotional company. The reason you're in the position that you are in, young man, is because of the promotion they've been doing for you behind the scenes. The reason you got hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and on Twitter is in part due to what Golden Boy has been doing for you behind the scenes. Young kid, you may be a little bit outside of yourself complaining. I understand you may want this and want that, but put things in perspective, sir. Your thoughts, Gail?
Oh, Ryan. Yes. Let us not forget that Ryan Garcia, for the last year or two, has been training with, the Reynosos, Eddie Reynoso and Chepo Reynoso, in Canelo's gym. He thinks he's learning lessons at the knee of his elder diva and channeling. Yeah, this is a hot-headed young man with a little too much testosterone, mouthing off, and he's gotten a little too big for his britches. This is not a good play for him. You've got legitimate sort of beefs with your promotional company. That's legitimate if you want to have some discussion, some words. You don't quite see things the right way. You know what? You don't take your you don't air your dirty laundry in public. Have the private meeting. You should have your own manager. You sit down. You try to work it out. You see what compromises can come from it, and you move on. Or you move on and you find somebody else to represent you. These guys do not necessarily need to understand everything that goes into the business operations and management aspect. They're the talent, right? And in Garcia's case, he was the bright young thing there for a while, until he started seeing some of these other guys in his stable succeeding and getting a lot of the buzz. And suddenly, he's looking over there at Vergil Ortiz Jr., now Andrew Cancio, some of these other guys. Hector Tanajara is getting buzz. Joet Gonzalez and Jose Gonzalez bring a lot of fans in. Southern California, under Golden Boy, has all kinds of young talent. And I think Ryan's feeling a little bit of pressure, is feeling the heat from these other guys who are young and hungry, with real talent in the ring. Garcia, I will give him credit. He has absolutely made the most of what he's got so far, but we're starting to see where he might have some limits to his skills. He's still fairly new working with the Reynosos. I'm willing to see what they can do with him, just as they brought Canelo up into the talent he is now. But Garcia needs to cool his jets, for Pete's sake. It's not a good look, man. I hope in 10 years he looks back on this and he's embarrassed by his youthful behavior.
Quick word on this, Jacob and Daniel.
Well, I'm not a fan of Ryan Garcia. I don't think that he's all that talented. I think that he's got a good-looking face, and he's had this promotion company behind him, and they've been able to promote him well, so he should be thanking his lucky stars that, they've been able to do that for him. And to Gel's point, I mean, if he could be pissed off at Golden Boy, but if Golden Boy hadn't been behind him, he probably would have never even been introduced to the Reynosas and the Canelo team, so he's got that opportunity to kind of, be under Canelo's wing. But I think, Ryan Garcia is going to find out pretty soon when he steps up his competition that, I think he's a knockout waiting to happen. I think defensively he's very hittable. And, we haven't really seen him in there with a top guy. So, I think he's going to be one of those prospects that blows up in Golden Boy's face, in the sense, because I just don't see. He's relied a lot on his power, but again, he's beating guys that don't have the best records, and what typically happens with prospects. They're fighting guys that they're so they can win and get some confidence and get some rounds in and whatnot. But I think in this very competitive division that he's in, if he fights someone like a Haney or one of these top guys, I think he's gonna be in for a rude awakening of what an actual top lightweight is. But yeah, I mean he's still young. He shouldn't be popping off his mouth like that. I mean, it's not like the guy's been around for a long time. He's 18-0. You're just a kid, man. You might think that you deserve all this stuff, but he's part of this generation, and I know this is probably going to piss some people off, but the millennials, where I think they feel like they're entitled to everything. And, you have to work to get some of this stuff, to get the respect, to get the money, to get all this stuff. It's not just given to you.
Quick word on this, Daniel.
What was one of the rules in Scarface that ultimately Tony Montana broke? Don't get high on your own supply. And unfortunately, that is what Ryan Garcia has been doing with this popping off of social media. He's been technically getting high as his own supply. I agree with Jacob in the sense of the fact that he hasn't really stepped up the competition, although I'm a little bit more of a optimist when it comes to his ceiling. But ultimately, this is also part of not the millennial aspect of it, is this notion that a lot of fighters have, that especially young fighters, that once you reach over, once you reach 15-0, you should already be in contention, when a lot of times, depending on the division, sometimes it can take 25 fights for you to really be tested. And with Garcia, we have to mention, he's not even 21 yet, I think. So he's a little bit too young to actually start popping off. And he's not exactly in the division where rushing in to step up would be a good move, because You mentioned Devin Haney. Let's even look at some of the champions. Would you put Ryan Garcia right now against Richard Comey? Hell no. Would you put him against Teofimo Lopez right now? Hell no. That's just even with the prospects. So, and we have to mention, we just saw Teofimo Lopez go through his own, like, little bit of a test. So, I would say to Ryan Garcia, okay, it's cute that you have hundreds of thousands of Instagram followers. You are following in the steps of your promoter as far as using your looks to get by. Like, one thing that we always had to mention when they came to Oscar de la Hoya fights, he brought a lot of female fans to the arenas, and that's what Ryan Garcia is doing now.
Otto was. De La Hoya was a bit more humble than this kid.
De La Hoya could back it up. You know what?
Exactly.
And he had a gold medal. The guy has a gold medal.
You know what? Give Garcia what he's asking for. Let him go up against some of these guys. Put up or shut up. And that might teach him a lesson, hard-learned one. But, we do know, we've seen it plenty of times. Sometimes an early loss in a talented young fighter's career is the best thing that could possibly happen for them to refocus, get their head on straight, lessons learned, learning occurs, and they're far better off for it. By the way, as a side note, Ryan Garcia turns 21 years old this Thursday. Stay out of the bars, ladies and gentlemen. And he's down, I don't know if he's back down in my neighborhood right now in San Diego training, but I think Eddie Reynoso needs to keep a very tight leash on him right now. If he's back home up in the high desert, oh my God, just saying.
Oh, Jesus. Like I said, don't get high on your own supply.
One last bit of news here before we move on to talk about the fights this weekend. We're going to talk about one fight. We all know Tyson Fury is trying to make inroads in the United States. He fought in June against Schwartz. Success, everything went well. Easy win, and the U.S. And the fans in the U.S. as well as the media liked what they saw, gravitated towards him. Well, he's going to fight again in September in the United States. And, okay, I can accept Schwartz because of the goal trying to make inroads in the U.S. But this fight is September 14th. Otto Wallin? Really? Otto Wallin?
Yeah, because Fury just called up his old buddy Tom Schwartz and said, "Hey, will your brother fight me next?"
He bypassed Charles Martin to fight Otto Wallin.
Well, I'm not mad at that, but how many people do you think saw the announcement of that fight and immediately ran to BoxRec and said, OTTO space WALL? How the hell does he spell his name again? Everybody did. He's ranked number 48 out of the 50 top heavyweights, by the way, from Sweden. He's going to be a blonde version of Tom Schwartz. And there we are, folks. And if you want to go to Vegas and pay your money for that, I have some thoughts about some much better things you could do with your money, including donating to any of the GoFundMe accounts that have been set up.
Pound for pound boxing report. We do have a couple of a PayPal and Cashmere account. Don't be a fool and spend your money on that fight. Send a couple of coins this way.
Cosign, absolutely, really. Yeah. Come on.
I got nothing, Jacob and Daniel. Your thoughts?
Disgrace. This is a disgrace. This guy, Tyson Fury, who I'll never stop saying, gets mileage off his name being Tyson Fury. He expects the paying public to just pay for his presence. He's supposed to be the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. The only person that he's fought basically of note since Klitschko was Wilder. So I'll give him that. But why is he fighting these guys? These guys that aren't even in the top 15, top 20. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. You think that these guys are going to prepare you for the top of the division? Like, do you think that? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you talk so much shit about how great you are, but then you're fighting these. Basically, these are bums. These are guys that are bums, and I hope one of these bums knocks him out and teaches him a lesson. Because
I would never call anybody a bum who gets in the ring. I would never do that. And he is undefeated, but he's never fought outside of Europe, ever. He's never fought anybody with a decent record. There isn't a single name on the resume the even slightly more knowledgeable fan would know. I challenge all of us on this panel to go look at his record and claim
I'm looking at it.
Right?
I'm looking at it. I don't see. I can't even pronounce half these names.
Yeah, he's not a bum. I don't blame Otto for taking the fight. It's a great opportunity for him. But, Top Rank and Fury should be ashamed of themselves. This is not something they should be asking the fans to pay for. Bottom line.
When I say bum, I'm saying it in the terms of, okay, you are a supposed to be top of the heap, at least in the top, let's say top 5 heavyweight, and you're fighting guys that have no name recognition, that haven't fought anybody worth a damn.
Dude, you can't even find any footage of him on YouTube. How?
Well, now that's saying something. Because you can find anybody on YouTube, seriously.
And that's my point.
Every fighter in Asia worth their salt you could find on YouTube. That's the truth. He's just simply, respect to anybody who does this for a living. Nevertheless, Otto Wallin is not qualified at this point of his career to have this opportunity. He's not stupid for taking it. Who wouldn't? Gets to fight in Las Vegas. He bragged all his buddies and stablemates back home in Sweden about this great opportunity he got. Let's just remember the last fighter from Sweden that got a big opportunity and stumbled and fell on his face.
Only footage I can find on the cat is him hitting the double bag. That's it. In an interview here or there. No footage of him fighting, sparring, nothing.
It's just such a bad look. Fury should be fighting. If he's going to fight somebody down at that level, I agree. Find at least an American fighter and give them an opportunity.
Jennings. He could fight Jennings. He could fight freaking Rivas. He could fight. There's so many people that he could fight that are actually in the top 20, let's just say. I'm not even saying he has to fight somebody in the top 5 or top 20, but he's a lineal heavyweight champion.
Well, I'm not a big fan of the whole lineal deal with him. He gave up the title. But having said that, let's think about who he could face. It's not like he's faced every single guy in the division at some point of his career. I mean, why don't we pull out Gerald Washington, for goodness sake? He's, I'm sure, available. Yeah, I mean, everyone would say, oh, my God, no, let's not waste our time on that. How is he any worse than Otto Wallin? Really? Let's think about somebody like, let's just go down the list. Somebody earlier mentioned Michael Hunter. Michael Hunter is the completely forgotten guy in this division. Completely.
That's a great pick.
Why not? Why?
Hunter's the guy that fought what's his name? Usyk, right?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I can't remember the name the guy he fought last time out on the zone, but I was very impressed with what I saw from him. There you go.
Yeah, no, you're right. And guess where Michael Hunter lives and trains? Anybody?
Vegas?
Las Vegas, Nevada. Hometown crowd. He'd be a hell of a draw. He's got a interim minor title. I believe. Well, he at one time did. I'll put it that way. Doesn't anymore. Or I take it back. I think he does still hold the vacant. Or he won a vacant IBO Intercontinental, kind of BS title.
WBA International Heavy Title. WBA.
Well, he went the distance with Usyk. Is his only loss.
I saw that fight. I was there for that fight. I was in. Maybe that was
Knox and Hill, Maryland. You were, but that's a good. You know what? His resume is perfectly good, and it'd be a great fight. He's considerably shorter than Fury at 6'2", but everyone said that about Andy Ruiz and Anthony Joshua too. So, let's hope this isn't signed, sealed, and delivered as we think it is. Maybe somebody, gets a load of sense knocked into him or something. But what we need to do is, we as fans, we as journalists, we as members of the boxing community, we can't affect whether this fight gets made or not. Here's what we can do. We vote with our wallets. We vote with our feet. We don't watch. We don't go. We don't buy a ticket. We don't talk about it again after this. And then the message will be sent. That's what's important now if this thing really goes forward.
How about Parker? Joseph Parker. Is he with Top Rank?
He's recently signed with DAZN.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. That's right.
No, but we have to take into account there have been recent collaborations between DAZN and Top Rank ESPN fighters, so there's no excuse there.
True.
Yeah,
That's true.
It could happen. I think Top Rank is hoping to preserve Parker, in his own lane. So I'm not sure that'd happen, but there are better options than a Swedish fighter nobody's ever heard of. And it's particularly bad coming after the Schwartz fight because it seems like a replay. They swapped out one anonymous European guy for another. That's a problem. That's a bad, bad look.
Where to begin with this bullshit? Where to begin with this bullshit? I'm not even calling it fuss. This is straight up bullshit. I'll be honest, Mike. When I saw this, I thought this was Hughie. Yeah. I thought,
at least Hughie's fighting, what's his face? Povetkin.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like, okay, that's what I thought. Like, wait a minute. Like, did the Povetkin fight fall through? Like, no, I see Tyson Fury. And then I see the date, and I get even more pissed. And it's like, okay, yes, Canelo technically gave up the day. But this is what you're going to give people, boxing fans in North America, pretty much a must-watch day in the North American boxing calendar. This is what you're giving us. If you're going to go this route, give us that guy that's on YouTube that I forgot what song it was. Somebody made a mix on YouTube. He was a Polish guy. He got punched up and he started dancing. And somebody made a music video about it.
Oh, I don't know.
A heavyweight guy?
A heavyweight guy. Like, remember, he was rumored for a while that Wilder was supposed to fight him. Is like, all I know is his first name, his last name starts with W, and he's from Poland. I'll find a video and show it to you guys. But Jesus, him would be better than Otto. Hell, Joey Votto would be better.
Moritz Wach?
No, not Wach. No, Wach is at least serviceable at this point.
Lukas Rozowski?
No.
Arthur Spilka?
I'll find the video. No, Spilka just got blazed recently, so no. But let's put it this way: okay, Joey Votto would be a better option, and he's a baseball player. Yasiel Puig would be a better option than Otto, and he's a baseball player. Hell, Bobo, not even played in the NBA, would be a better option than Otto. This is, oh my God. Okay, I get it on one front. You're trying to protect Fury for the Wilder rematch. I get it. Supposedly he's already signed. Supposedly all they got to do, Wilder's got to do is get past Ortiz, and Fury's just got to breathe against this guy. As I drink Henny because this made me fucking drink. But should we really be surprised? Think about this, folks. This is a man who fought a guy named Sefer Seferi. The only opponent of note that he has fought has been Wilder, and it took the grace of him not being caught by the ropes in a way for him to actually have made it 12 rounds against Wilder. And that's with him winning the fight in a way. Like, I had him winning, and when I'm looking at it the second, third time. But Jesus Christ, oh my God. You know what's going to happen in this fight. This promotion is just going to be all about Tyson Fury, all about chasing Deontay. And then, of course, then you have to worry about the fact that you're putting Tyson Fury, a known recovering drug addict, in Las Vegas.
He did fine the first time around. There's plenty to entertain him other than his usual vices in Vegas. He and Vegas seem to be born for each other. Though, what would serve right is if Oscar Wallin knocked Tyson Fury the F out.
Yeah.
That's what I want to happen.
You know what? You know what? I'm right now.
$50 on it. Why not?
You know what, Gail? I'm right now Barney in that meme from The Simpsons. Just stick it in my veins if that happens.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. And of course, this is the substitute for what we thought we were going to get with Canelo and Golovkin 3. So I have already read suggestions. I will not pretend that this is my own thoughts. There have been plenty of suggestions online by smart wags on social media that Tyson Fury should come in dressed in a serape and a sombrero to Canelo's traditional Mexican ring walk song.
Oh, dear.
Considering where Las Vegas is and the fact that people with the number 13 are probably a little bit more prevalent than the people with the number 14, no. No.
I think we've beat this to death, just like Otto Wallin.
I'm sorry, I got to read this in the chat. As Jacob said that he should dress as a jackass because that's what he is.
You know what? You know what he should come dressed as? At this point, Shrek. Because he can fit the bill. He's big, he's fat enough where he can do it.
And you think about it, he does kind of look like Shrek.
Yeah.
But Shrek is lovable. I like Shrek. I hate Tyson Fury.
Moving on.
Yeah, Carl Frampton's hurt. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, that's some serious stuff.
Yeah, breaking news here before we move on to preview fights here, or one fight. Carl Frampton, who was going to fight, I think, either this weekend, either this weekend or the weekend of the 7th. Yeah, this weekend.
It was scheduled this Saturday. Yeah.
Going to fight in Philadelphia. News broke today, as a matter of fact, that he's been pulled out of that fight as a result of a broken hand. So Frampton, who's on the comeback trail following a loss to Warrington, I think that was earlier this year. Either earlier this year or late last year. I think late last year it was, late 2018. His comeback has been thwarted. Hopefully we'll get to see him in the ring again because he's still a competent fighter and still a viable name. at the 126-pound division at featherweight. So hopefully he'll be on the mend. He'll heal up, have a full recovery, a quick recovery, and we'll see him in the ring in short time. Let's move on to preview a specific fight here. We earlier talked about Ryan Garcia and his issues with Golden Boy, and I mentioned he may not be Garcia. He may not be the best prospect, but he may be the most popular. Well, in my opinion, the best prospect that Golden Boy has is Vergil Ortiz Jr. Saw his last fight on the undercard, pay-per-view undercard. I can't remember the guy he beat. But very impressive.
Herrera.
Mauricio Herrera. Stopped him in the third, fourth round. He's not just the best prospect on Golden Boy Stables. I think he's one of the better prospects in all the sport, regardless of weight. 140, 147. It doesn't matter where he's going to fight. He has potential in either division. I think he's either 16-0 or 17-0, but he can box, he can punch. I love the way
13-0.
13-0. Oh, I'm thinking of somebody else. 13-0, but still, he has boxing skills. He has power. I love the way he goes to the body, and I love his demeanor in the ring. He's one cool cat in there. He looks to be flustered. He doesn't seem to be flustered by anything. He has a look of someone who's wise beyond his years, wise beyond his experience. I'll go to you, Jacob. Ortiz is going to fight Antonio Orozco. Solid matchup, but I just think the talent overall from Ortiz will be a bit too much here for Orozco.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup because Orozco only has one loss against Jose Ramirez, and he's definitely a formidable opponent.
Step fight for sure.
Yeah, and I want to be careful because I think we did this with Munguia because he beat the shit out of what's his face Ali, and kind of like came out of the gate that we don't put. Because, again, Mauricio Herrera, good fighter, but definitely on the end of his career. So he blitzed a guy that was on the end of his career. The guy has 13 fights. He says 13 KOs, but, if you look at some of the competition, like we talked about before, you fight some guys that don't have the best records, and then you start to step up your competition. So I think Orozco's fight will tell us a lot about what kind of prospect Ortiz is. Is he the real deal? Can he handle, what Orozco's going to bring to the table? Orozco's 28-1, so he's got, basically double the amount of fights that Ortiz has. So he's got, experience. He's been in there with some tough guys. I think he's got some good skills. So it should be a pretty good fight. And, it's hard to pick someone right now, but I'd have to lean towards Ortiz because he does have that power factor. Orozco, in his fight with Ramirez, he got knocked down twice. He does get cut. He can be cut. So, you have to favor Ortiz, but I think this will tell us a lot about what kind of prospect that he truly is.
Your thoughts on this fight, Daniel?
This is a fight that I really, really like. I really, really love this fight. Antonio Orozco is a definitely big step up from, even though as much as I like the Mauricio Herrera, but this is a big, big step up for Vergil. It's going to be a really, really good test because we saw how tough he had to be out against Jose Ramirez. And this is going to be a good tell, and this is a pretty big vote of confidence by Golden Boy. Like we just talked about, like one of their, like I said, technically more popular guys than Ryan Garcia. Like he's popular on one front, but it kind of shows you the confidence that they have in Garcia, where they're putting him slow, while Vergil Ortiz in his 14th fight is fighting somebody of Orozco's caliber. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. Vergil, I love the way he, like I said, he does one of the things that I love about fighters that people forget. It always goes to the body. So I definitely look forward to this fight. I could see this one become a classic. I could see this one actually even be a low-key fight of the year candidate. But I do believe that Vergil will probably come out on top. It'll be close, though.
Gail?
I'm not sure it will be close. This is a real test of, is he a contender or a pretender? Now, he's not going to be a complete pretender, but Golden Boy is putting him to the test. This is exactly what they should be doing for Ryan Garcia. It doesn't help a fighter to protect them. Vergil Ortiz is 21 years old, 13-0, 13 knockouts, perfect 100% knockout ratio to fights. And as we've already heard from most of the panel, a lot of those knockouts are body shots or precipitated by a body shot. This guy, he is wicked tough. He is moving up to welterweight for this fight, as is Orozco. Orozco's had a lot of trouble making weight at 140, a lot. And this is smart for him to do this. He got pounded by Jose Ramirez, but man, he never backed down. He never gives up. His nickname is Relentless, and man, he's earned it. So everybody who saw his fight with Ramirez came away a lot like the fight between Kownacki and Arreola over last weekend, although to Orozco's credit, he's got a lot more skill than that. But you came away with so much admiration even in the loss. And after the fight, if any of you recall, it was the night before Canelo Golovkin 2, and the Friday night before, in Ramirez's hometown of Fresno. And Orozco stood in there tough, got to the final bell, lost, and said, listen. And that was his first loss, by the way. He was undefeated up to that point. He said, I have no shame in my effort. I gave it my all. I want my kids someday to be able to look at me and say, you know, Dad, you made us proud. You never gave up. I mean, it was, if you didn't feel emotional watching that speech in the ring after his loss, I don't really need to know you. This is what boxing is all about. And you know what?
Right.
That loss, in a lot of ways, earned him this matchup. They're both super enthusiastic about it. There's a lot of mutual respect. Despite the fact that Orozco isn't that much older than Ortiz, it's, you know, sort of like he's the wiser older brother, you know, going to tangle with him. This fight is in Texas, so it's on Ortiz Jr.'s home turf. I think we'll see a really good performance out of him. I hope Orozco puts on an equally good performance, but I do think he's going to lose. And he's a hometown guy for me in San Diego. I wish him well, a real gentleman outside of the ring. And it's a smart move for him to go up to welterweight. Even if he loses, it's his first fight at 147, officially anyway. And he's still got a lot of opportunities. It's just the right matchup all the way around. And kind of the only game in town now with, unfortunately, Carl Frampton out. And Michael, I don't know that you revealed how Frampton broke his hand. That's a story in itself.
I haven't heard. I just read the story. I didn't read the details of it. So please explain.
So apparently he was in the hotel. They had checked into the hotel already, you know, getting ready for fight week in Philadelphia. And someone knocked over some concrete pillar or platform or statue or something, and it crushed his hand.
Wow.
In the hotel. So whoever did that is going to have a little conversation with somebody about the accident. It's just the freakiest accident. Who was it that cut himself in the shower and had to cancel?
Yeah, I was just gonna say he was supposed to fight somebody. He was supposed to fight somebody, and that whole thing happened.
Yeah.
Verdejo?
Was it Felix?
No, not Verdejo. Not Verdejo.
No,
The dude that didn't want to leave the fight, so Irish goons had to rough him up in the shower.
No, there was some freaky shower accident that canceled a fight.
But he also got hurt. I think that one guy like fell in the shower, and then Frampton also had some type of injury.
It was a fall in the shower. So this is about on that level of freak accident of somebody knocked over some concrete thing in the hotel and it crushed his hand. He's out.
Well,
crazy.
Knowing that it's Philly, I'm surprised nobody yelled out ECW when his hand was crushed.
Andres Gutierrez was the guy that he was supposed to fight.
Yep.
Injured himself in the shower fall. He suffered cuts to his face and bruising to his head and his nose, and broke 2 teeth.
That's a trivia question right there.
Yeah,
and we're all such boxing degenerates. We immediately thought of it. We know our stuff. It's like, that was that guy that got hurt, fall in the shower, or some crazy ass thing. Yeah, and he had a big cut under his chin. I recall the photos vividly for some reason.
His nose and his chin.
Yeah. Yep. But that's okay, folks. We got the Orozco Ortiz fight. Going to be a terrific bit of entertainment. And a lot of the young prospects we've been talking about being on the Golden Boy stable will appear in that on that card as well. Hector Tanahara is one you'll want to keep an eye on. And we may see some other rising talent. These are great little cards to watch.
Jacob, Daniel, your thoughts on the fight? I think, Jacob, you already gave your opinion. So, Daniel, your thought on the fight?
On this call, Frampton mess?
Well, yeah. On the call, Frampton mess, yeah. Because I didn't know that situation. I just knew he broke his hand. I didn't know it was just that freaky of an accident. Wow. Ew.
Yeah. It's Philadelphia. We have to remember, weird things happen in Philadelphia. Whether it's Rocky or the fact that they boo Santa Claus. But there's not much you can say. You can just shake your head at this. Oh, my God. Thank God for Vergil. Wait, actually, is this actually going to be in the zone, or this is going to be one of the Facebook Watch deals that Golden Boy has?
I don't know. Do you know?
No, this is a full DAZN card.
Okay, thank God.
On Saturday, and they're in Grand Prairie, Texas.
Oh, thank God, because the last major card that Golden Boy had with Facebook Watch, I remember we lost half of the card because the stream froze. Oh, Jesus. I'm still mad at Tyson Fury. If I had to take another shot at him, I'm so pissed off.
I think we may start to, I think we're going to end the show on that. I think we're going to end the show. Yeah, before Daniel gets completely drunk here. I'm going to go around the panel here. I began the show starting with ladies first. I'm going to end the show that same way. Gail for Communities Digital News. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk all things media, because you do teach media. For those who want to talk small businesses, advice, Dancing with the Stars, environmental issues, let the folks know where they can find you.
My column appears in Communities Digital News, which is an online news website. It is COMM, Digi, D-I-G-I, news, comdiginews.com. And saludos, amigos.
Indeed. I go to you, Jacob from Jab Hook Boxing. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk movies, because you are a semi-regular on the Wrong Real Movie podcast, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, and thanks as always to the wonderful panel, the award-winning Gail, and Daniel with his own show with the 4 Boxing News people. So good people know their stuff. Love talking to you guys about it, and of course Michael. But yeah, I could be found on Twitter, JRATM23. And then if you're into movies, there's a couple movie podcasts that I've been on. One is the Wrong Real podcast. They just did, they do all kinds of stuff. So they just did one on a Mexican director, kind of went through his filmography. Mexican horror, I think. And then the Film89.uk podcast, they just did one on, I think it was the anniversary of Chinatown or something like that. But it was a really good podcast. So if you like movies, check that out. And of course, always support the show. Hit Mike up for donations and whatnot, and follow him, through all his channels.
Last but not least, Daniel, who's sipping on Henny right now. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, well, you can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. Like I said, I've been away in Europe for about a week and a half. Just got back last week and joined Francis for Boxing News. They've been busy with their own work, but I think we're going to be able to make it this week because Jesus Christ, with this Canelo mess, Ryan Garcia mess, and Tyson Fury wanted me to freaking get drunk on air. It's gonna be an interesting week, and not to mention August is a little bit thin when it comes to boxing, but hey, stranger things have happened in August when it comes to boxing. We all admit that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness with me, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding pound for pound boxing, yeah, Daniel is on that happy sauce, Jacob. For those who want to find out all things regarding pound for pound boxing report, the blog page is the place to go to, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. That's the link. You can check the top right of the blog page. You'll find links to where to find Pound for Pound Boxing Report all over social media, where to find us on all platforms that carry RSS feeds, where to find the donate links, got a PayPal and Cash Me donate link, let donation be the best nation, as well as the links to the online Beachbody page. Like I said, Beachbody Challenge for August is starting this month. Week, not, Daniel and Gail, you may need to get a workout in, Daniel specifically, to work some of that alcohol off. Just check the top right of the page. You'll find the links to my page, to my coaching page. And for anybody interested, just hit me up on Twitter, private DM, and I'll send you the information regarding the fitness challenge. On the next episode, where we do a recap of Ortiz and Orozco, and we would preview some fights that's happening on the 17th. Emmanuel Navarrete, who made a splash on the scene, beating Isaac Dogbe late last year, scored a rematch to knockout stoppage in a rematch this past May. He will defend the title against, I think, is a guy who he has a chance to really look good against, a fighter by the name of Davaka. Very inexperienced guy is Davaka. That fight is going to happen in LA. Fight is going to be aired on ESPN. On the undercard of that, Jesse Magdaleno, you will see him on that undercard. And let me look, see if there's any other fights. That's the main significant bout this weekend, so we probably just focus on that card. So yeah, this has been episode 261 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Let me reiterate here once again, our hearts go out to the victims of the mass shooting as a result of domestic terrorism. Don't let anybody tell you it's anything different. That was an act of domestic terrorism, hate-fueled, racist form of domestic terrorism. Our hearts and all our thoughts and prayers go out to those who suffered the loss of life, for those who were injured in El Paso, Texas, as well as Dayton, Ohio. So once again, episode 261 of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For Gail for Communities Digital News, for Jacob of Jab Book, for Daniel, Indian Scriber, I'm your host, Michael. We'll see you next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.
Good night.